So there's a story going around the internet, it's been out there for 2 weeks now, and it's about Xiaomi coming out with a few new electric vehicles. The phone company, Xiaomi by the way, but they make brilliant cars as well. Literally never heard a bad thing said about them. Because Xiaomi has just confirmed it's planning to launch 4 new electric models in 2026. And 2 of them are actually extended range SUVs. And when you actually stop and think about that, when you look at what they're doing, this is not just another tech company having a go at cars. This is Xiaomi, and they're very, very clearly in this, and they're doing really, really well. Everyone seems to like their cars. Let's jump into it. Hello folks, my name is Ben Alexander. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really, really appreciate your time. So if you've been, or if you've only half been paying attention to Xiaomi's car story so far this last year or two, not everyone has been overly interested in it, but a lot of people are. Here is a quick recap. Xiaomi launched its first car, which was called the SU7, and they had a few derivatives of that car, like the Ultra, really, really quick car. But even the slowest one, really, really quick, and slowest is the, it's not the right word. And it was in China, and it was not a concept car. You could literally just go and buy it for not very much money, and it wasn't a promise, and it wasn't a one day we might do this sort of thing. There's quite a lot of them, and they've sold lots of them, literally thousands of them. So it was a real production car delivered to customers, and it sold really, really well straight out of the gate. Everyone seemed to just like it. A couple of questions regarding the image of it, and maybe some people think they copied Porsche with it, and but despite that, I think the whole car is brilliant. Not so sure about the front end, but I really think the whole car is great, and it does drive incredibly well. But this new announcement changes the tone completely, because Xiaomi isn't testing the waters anymore. This is not their first car. They're planning a proper lineup, and I wonder, are they going to actually come head to head and do really well when we compare them to BYD in, say, 2 or 3 years' time? Because I suppose they've got what it takes to actually compete with companies like BYD. They have started in the same sort of way. Both started as tech companies. BYD pivoted and then became a very big car manufacturer and did really, really well. They had the money, the backing, the business acumen and wit. So does Xiaomi. They literally have all of those things, I think. So 4 models in the next 12 months, 2 extended range SUVs, that tells us a lot. So the first thing to understand here is why extended range matters. Xiaomi is not just going full battery only on those 2 and hoping that the infrastructure will sort itself out. They're clearly looking at how people actually drive in China and also in Australia and Europe too, especially outside of the big tier 1 big cities in China, which are massive, by the way. Just in case you've never been to China, when you come into land in China and you're 20 minutes above a city, and then you'll start to land and you can see skyscrapers 15-20 minutes later, when you're landing in, like, say, Shenzhen or something like that, or anywhere in China, I suppose, in the big cities, 15-20 minutes later, you're still looking at skyscrapers and you've been descending for 15 or 20 minutes. So China is big. So when we say big tier 1 cities in China, we're not talking about London, we're not talking about Brisbane, we're not talking about Sydney. Shenzhen, for example, basically the size of London, Paris, Melbourne, Adelaide, all put together in a big city, and then some. It's really big. It's a really big deal. So extended range EVs solve a very big specific problem. You get the electric driving every day, so you get a good range every single day. Quiet, they're smooth, cheap to run, but you also get a petrol generator on board for long trips. Not for everyone. I know a lot of you won't really be a fan of that, but a lot of people are actually very, very good for cold weather or rural driving, or for just people who don't want to think about chargers yet. You just chuck in a little bit of petrol and off you go. So it's not a stopgap. It's a pretty good strategy, I think, for certain people. Like for very rural Australians, for example, if you live in a very rural place, and you will find yourself very often doing 1,600 kilometre trips. I know someone actually who has a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in electric, and he loves it. He really loves it, because you just put in a bit of petrol, and then whenever you get home after a long trip back to a city or something like that, you just charge it up, and then hopefully most days you just use the electric. And I think it works for a lot of people, but people who like plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, there are a lot of people who just give them a lot of shtick. And they're actually really, really useful to a lot of people. And basically almost everyone who's had a hybrid goes into a full electric afterwards. And that number, the conversion rate after a hybrid, is going up exponentially over the last 7 years. So we should not really mind so much, in my opinion. And it lines up with what we're seeing across China right now. Extended range vehicles are growing really, really fast, especially in the SUV segment, because they're just, they just fit how families use cars, long distances, they're unpredictable charging access, and frankly, people don't want the hassle. Also, just a quick mention here. Thank you very much to these people who are the channel members. These people are people who have bought me a coffee, or joined on Patreon, or joined on YouTube members. You're very welcome to join. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Also, just so you know, I'm thinking to do a live stream in the next 2 or 3 days. Any questions that are in the comments below, literally any questions, I'm going to answer them, unless it becomes hundreds of questions. But basically, I'm just going to try and answer all of the comments. So it might be a long one, but I will try to answer them. So, Xiaomi choosing SUVs here, I don't think is an accident either. SUVs are where the money is in certain markets. They're getting much more common in China. People buying an SUV care about screens or software or sound systems, voice control, driver assistance, LiDAR, ecosystem stuff. Ecosystem stuff in the West, we've almost not really seen that. Possibly a little bit, you could say, Tesla owners have, but largely we haven't. Obviously, BYD just recently applied to collaborate and join with Huawei, so that, when you walk to your car at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to go home after work, it will turn your kettle on. Stuff like that, and it will open your curtains in your living room and turn up your house and get your lights open, your gates open, stuff like that. There's this collaboration going, and I think in the next 10 years we're going to see some pretty crazy stuff. This is the bit I think a lot of legacy automakers still don't fully grasp. Actually, Elon Musk did tweet something about this recently. Or do you still tweet on X? I'm not so sure. Xiaomi isn't just starting from zero. They already have hundreds of millions of users inside their ecosystem. Phones, tablets, smart homes, wearables, TVs, routers, kind of everything. So in China, when Xiaomi builds a car, they're not thinking about how do we bolt some tech onto a vehicle. They're thinking about how does this car become another device. This is the most significant thing I think we're going to see in the next 5 years, above battery chemistry, above everything, and a lot of people are talking about how tech companies can kind of observe what we're doing and our behaviors and things like that. This is the most significant aspect of electric cars. I think in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to start to see that stuff leach into our cars, I reckon. And it sounds abstract, but it does matter. And if your phone or your house and your car all speak together and they speak kind of the same language, switching brands becomes very, very painful. So the next big battle is not necessarily who can sell you a car and get a couple of grand from you. It's who can become the next ecosystem. And that's how Apple has been locking people in for years, even despite the fact that now less people have an Apple phone than an Android phone, for example, and their prices are extremely expensive, and they're objectively not as good as a lot of Android phones on the market, but people seem to just like Mac computers, and so they just get an Apple because it's a bit simpler. Although I'm not so sure how much simpler, but I think people sort of think it is simpler. Xiaomi is doing exactly the same thing, just faster and cheaper. So let's talk about timing, because 2026 is very interesting. A lot of traditional car makers still talking about 2026 like it's the future. We're in now. It's in the first week in January, so new platforms coming in, new EV architectures, software updates, big plans. Xiaomi is talking about 2026 like it's a delivery date. It's really, really not. It's a very big deal, and they've already sunk tens of billions into this program for these four new vehicles. They've hired lots of people, literally it's in the thousands of people extra. They've built factories, they've partnered with suppliers who already know how to scale, and this is not a side project. And we know this because I literally speak to different brands all the time. I spend a lot of time communicating with them, and they publicly avow stuff and they say things on their website. It's really quite easy. If you do look for the data, it is all there. And if you're confident enough to say 4 models in 1 year, that suggests that their internal timelines are pretty solid. And Xiaomi, largely, when they say stuff, they're accurate, they mean it. So 2 extended range SUVs also tells us something else. Xiaomi's not trying to be Tesla, they're not trying to be a purist EV brand. They're trying to sell cars to normal people, teachers, doctors, people who clean streets, people who sell, potatoes with mints on them. Ordinary people, they want to just sell normal cars for ordinary people. And I admire that. I think that's really, really great. I don't think we're seeing enough of that in the world these days. And of course, the world is getting wildly more expensive for a lot of people who don't have enough resources, and it's really hard to just survive for so many people. So that is actually much closer to what BYD has done than what Tesla did early on. One of the big selling points, I think, for BYD, and I don't even need to mention it, is obviously the fact that they make cars for everyone across the board, and they've got a car for basically every segment. Meet people, where they are and not where you want them to be, which is kind of what I think Tesla has sort of done over the last few years. Now, if you zoom out a little bit, because this has implications way beyond Xiaomi, every time a company like this enters the market properly, it squeezes everyone else. Prices get tighter, margins get thinner, and there's basically no margin now for pretty much all electric vehicle brands in China. Like I was talking about recently, this week there will be a video coming out, or maybe it's already out actually, called Chinese Hunger Games. Just Google it or look on the channel. I'll put it on the left side at the end and in the description for you. Chinese Hunger Games. We're gonna just see all the car companies in China just vanish in the next few years. Expectations are going up for sure for Xiaomi in the next few years. If Xiaomi can offer a tech-heavy, well-built SUV, just like the SU7, for example, but just not a little saloon car, with a really solid range, decent performance, nothing wild, keep the prices reasonable, and very good, deep software integration at competitive prices, then what exactly is the value proposition of a legacy brand going forward, or doing a compliance EV like Toyota seemingly are doing a lot, with laggy screens and a subscription for heated seats? I think that's the uncomfortable question. People don't like to talk about that. And I think it's not just Western brands that should be nervous. Even some Chinese brands will feel this. Xiaomi has a reputation of undercutting on price while still delivering a lot of perceived quality. And they've done it in phones. I can vouch for that, for sure. I've got loads of Xiaomi tech as well. Their phones have gotten a little bit more expensive the last few years, but still half the price of Apple, for example, and significantly better, I think, in my opinion. They do TVs, they do laptops, literally everything. Cars are harder, obviously a little bit bigger, a little bit harder to ship, and you can't put them in a box and sell them on Amazon. But the mindset is the same, effectively. Another thing worth mentioning here is brand trust. Xiaomi has actually built up a lot of goodwill in China. People already trust them a lot with personal data, payments, home security, just reliability basically, and longevity. And when you buy something, it will come to your house quickly. If you want to return it, you can return it and you'll get your money back. And with daily use devices as well, this is going really, really well, like watches and things like that. People have been using them for years and they seemingly just don't break. And I think it's really great. So trusting them with a car seems to be not a very huge leap. That's my interpretation, of what's going on basically. So I think it matters more than what people think, this trust that we have in these brands. So where does this go next? What happens? I think in the short term, this keeps the pressure on the brands, especially legacy brands. More competition, more choice, more tension. I think that's good for us, the buyers who give our money to buy these vehicles. Medium term, I think we're going to go see a real shakeout. Not every EV brand is going to survive the second half of this decade, for sure. Most of them will not, actually. Some will merge, some will disappear, some will be bought out, some will majorly pivot, and companies like Xiaomi make that process faster because they don't play by the old rules, basically. So long term, this raises a bigger question, I think. Are we headed toward a world where the biggest car brands are also tech brands, and they run the computers in our houses that control our systems in the houses that we currently don't even think about in the West, because we don't really integrate our houses like that. But I think we will be in 5 or 10 years. I think we'll start to see this stuff coming online. So not car companies that learned software, but software companies that learned manufacturing. I think this is the way that this is the reality in the industry now, because if Xiaomi can pull this off, I think others will follow. So 4 models, 2026, doesn't sound very flashy on its own. To some people it would sound dull, but I don't think it is. I think it's very, very important. And but when you connect the dots, this is Xiaomi saying that they want a real seat at the table by 2030, not a concept car, not a niche. They want a proper lineup, and with lots of sales under their belt. Genuinely, I'm really curious to know what you think about this. What do you think about the ecosystems that are being built currently? now. Like obviously in China, there's a big group of people, a group of businesses, 350 of China's largest businesses have all just been recently, in the last couple of years, signing up to work together, and BYD and Huawei just making agreements right now actually about collaborating on the software that will basically connect our phones and on our watches and on our cars, on the houses and things like that. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Good or bad? Or anything else you want to say? I'm sure you could fill in the dots there. So let me know in the comments. I read all the comments. Remember to put the questions in for the live stream. And I'm always interested to see how people feel about this sort of stuff. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I will let you have the space in the YouTube comments. So you can go for it. Say anything you like. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate your time, and very, very touched and thrilled by all the comments and all the nice things over Christmas and New Year's. Thank you very much.